Welcome to Must See IMDB, a podcast where we break down the IMDb's #1 top-rated episode of a classic TV show, and then we discuss, did the IMDb voters do the show justice, or are there hidden gem episodes that need a boost up the list? I'm Abby.
And I'm Katie.
You may have noticed our voices are exactly the same because we're twins.
As kids, we watched a ridiculous amount of television and continue to do so right through to today. We watch, we discuss, and now we're discussing with you.
All right, so you probably noticed from the title of this episode that today we are going to be discussing the beloved new classic television show, Schitt's Creek.
Schitt's Creek is the story of the Rose family, former billionaires who have their entire fortune taken back from them. The only asset that remains is the small little town of Schitt's Creek that the dad, Johnny Rose, bought for his son, David Rose, way back when David was 15 as a joke gift for his birthday. Moira is the family matriarch, a former soap opera star. And finally, we have daughter Alexis Rose, a socialite, a world traveler, always caught up in bizarre, unexpected adventures. They all crash land in Schitt's Creek. They meet Stevie Budd, the motel owner where they stay. They meet Roland and Jocelyn Schitt, the mayor and the mayor's wife of the town, who they don't think of as being great people, but who perhaps are even greater than the Roses are. They come to grow and learn to rebuild their lives from the ground up. And that's the story of Schitt's Creek.
All right, so what did IMDb say is the best Schitt's Creek episode of all time? Surprise, surprise! Once again, the voters have gone with the series finale, and wouldn't you know, that means we have another wedding in the episode called Happy Ending. All right, so let's get started and break down this episode. Katie, do you want to tell us what happens? How do we start this momentous occasion?
Well, can I just say that one of the things that I love about the structure is they do these cold opens, which are just a lot of fun. And this one sort of sets us up for the episode. We've got David kind of waking up on his wedding morning, and it is total chaos and disaster around him. It's raining cats and dogs. The venue, which was outdoors, has to be switched. They're going to have to scramble to find somewhere else to do this. The officiant has canceled. Heads are rolling. Raindrops are falling. Things are not looking good.
One thing I loved about this cold open was it reminded me of the end of The Wizard of Oz, because David bolts upright in bed and all of his family members are crowded over his face. But rather than be, oh, I'm home, everything's wonderful, he sort of wakes up into a nightmare. And instead of sharing joyous things, each family member shares yet another problem that's going to be happening on his wedding day.
It reminded me of this one scene in Friends where the camera's like Ben, the baby's point of view, and all the friends are hovering over him. Of course, in that, they're cooing at the cute little baby. But in this, it's all the family members worriedly hovering over David.
Yeah, and David reacts appropriately, because the ending of the cold open reminded me of For Weddings and a Funeral, where every word is just,
hold on, what if kids are listening? It's F-bombs. F-bombs are going off. So then eventually David's go tell Patrick about all this craziness. Patrick's super relaxed. He's just rolling with the punches here, and David is freaking out, but Patrick knows enough to just, stay calm and let David kind of get it out of his system.
He knows also well enough to pre-plan a massage for David, because what needs to happen is David needs to just be set off to the side so that Patrick can move in and diligently get all these problems solved and get their wedding on track. Yeah, and then the whole town gathers to problem solve together under a rainy tent, and they do a pretty good job of it. I'd say everyone's pitching in.
Oh, yeah. So through a whole series of discussions, etc., they decide that the town hall is going to have to be where they're going to have to put the ceremony on. All the townspeople come together and really put on a show. It's great.
I have to point out that this has ties to our own family life, wherein on Katie's wedding morning, she woke up, she was planning an outdoor ceremony on the beautiful hillside of her home, But instead of the glorious falling leaves, we had snow, lots of snow, and essentially a mudslide on the hill where the ceremony was supposed to take place.
My husband, fiance at the time, who has since learned never to do this again, I was literally turning off the lights right before bed the night before it. And he said, "Oh, I just looked at the weather report. It's going to snow tomorrow." And then proceeded to pass out. Well, I freaked out, did not sleep at all that night, and basically was coming up with like a 500-point task list, which I just threw in your hands the next morning, Ab. So it all worked out perfectly fine. So Patrick has successfully, shuttled David off to the side, but he does have to come back and break to news to David that, they're going to be doing the wedding in the town hall.
Right. Patrick and now Stevie is with him, and they're definitely, yes, tiptoeing across the eggshells of having to tell David the mediocre news about how they've fixed the wedding. But yeah, he is delightfully calm and very zen in ways we've never seen David before. And it's because of the title of this episode, Happy Ending. Let's just think about that massage, folks. Let's think about that massage. And indeed, there has already been a happy ending before the episode's even over.
I remember watching this, and when this scene happened where you figure out, this is our oh my gosh. I couldn't believe this is where we had gone, but it was so apropos and I loved it. So now we've got kind of a reversal here. Now Patrick is freaking out. He is upset. This just sets off David, who is shocked that Patrick is shocked because he thought that Patrick paid for this additional service, shall we say.
Yeah, he was both shocked and impressed.
Oh, and my favorite ending to sort of this scene is that while he's calming Patrick down over Patrick's shoulder, we're getting some serious facial communications between him and Stevie.
Yeah, he's essentially rehashing the happy ending with Stevie using nothing but his eyebrows.
So David comes back to the hotel to get ready with his sister, who proceeds to come out of the bathroom in her getup, which is essentially a wedding dress.
Yeah, and it's a gorgeous one if it were her wedding day, but it's not. And yet she's still dressed as though she is the star of the show.
Stevie sort of comes in and breaks it all up so that we could all proceed on to the wedding.
This is the wedding we've waited seasons for. This is the wedding where we're invested in both people coming together in this union. So we are just as excited, just as nervous, just as thrilled as every wedding guest. We begin with the new officiant entering, Moira. The first time I saw her entrance, I had to pause my Netflix and laugh for a good 30 seconds before unpausing. I don't even know how to describe this. It's a picture worth more than 1,000 words.
She's a pope. She's dressed as the pope. Just so over the top. You're right. Oh,
yeah. Go Google Moira wedding. That's all. It's indescribable. Indescribable. Now, before David makes his entrance, we do have sort of some behind the scenes of he and Alexis before they do walk down to the aisle together, looking like a bride and groom.
Yes, Alexis finally deigns to admit, I'm really sorry. I'm pretty sure this is a wedding dress now that I'm thinking about it. This is one of a couple of really sweet moments throughout this episode with Alexis. Earlier in the day, she and her mom have a really sweet sort of connection moment. And she, does this really poignant sort of I love you to her mom. And then at this point in the ceremony, we get a really heartfelt I love you to her brother. So we just have this whole sort of Alexis series of she's kind of closing out her time in Schitt's Creek, just making sure that every member of her family knows that she loves them.
Yeah. And then when they do take that walk down the aisle, I love how she's just beaming and so excited for him. She's like waving to Johnny and she's just so thrilled. And he's really emotionally hit by all of it, but they're both beaming in ways that we haven't seen them be this happy. So yeah, they've both come so far.
I think this series finale really gives everything that the fan could possibly want.
Yeah, this show definitely stuck the landing.
So throughout all of this, the Jazzagals, all women's musical group that's part of Schitt's Creek, throughout this ceremony, we've had a couple beautiful numbers by them. But David walks down to the aisle to The Best by Tina Turner.
It couldn't have been any other song for obvious reasons.
Yes.
So then Moira performs the ceremony, and it's quite a show. She only forgets Patrick's last name once. There's lots of modulation of volume that's surprising, and David is shocked a couple of times, but she definitely performs and leaves everyone in tears, but not as much as Patrick and David's vows, because Simply the Best is still not quite enough, and Patrick performs some Mariah Carey, again, a callback to an important person in their relationship. And I do have a clip.
I think you already know that I would climb 1,000 mountains for you. So I'll just say this. You will always be a part of me. And I'm part of you indefinitely. Boy, don't you know you can't escape me. 'Cause you know you'll always be my baby. And we'll linger on.
So then we get David's vows. It's a beautiful speech, but of course he ends it with, "And you, Patrick Brewer, are my happy ending."
Oh, and this time it's sweet and sentimental and lovely.
Yes.
And hilarious, let's be honest.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, all the good shows do both so well. They can, make you fall off your chair laughing one moment and then start sobbing the next.
And they'll do it both ways. You'll be crying and then they'll, hit you with a punchline and you'll be laughing.
Yes. So then after this magnificent ceremony, we're, coming down from this high now. It's the next morning and it's time for Moira and Johnny to say goodbye.
Yeah, we've got everyone out in front of the motel. They've all clearly not slept very much because I'm sure it was a big shindig afterwards. Oh, this is where we get Alexis's third and final "I love you" to her dad.
One thing I noticed is that this third "I love you" that she says to Johnny is the only time he says "I love you" back. Now, when she said it to Moira, Moira was like, okay. And had some patting of the back. And David was touched, but didn't say anything back. I think Moira and David are very similar. He's definitely the apple that didn't fall far from her tree. Johnny is the only rose that returns her "I love you" back to her. I think the reason that is, it's for us to realize that, Alexis is headed to New York. She's going to own her own PR firm. And I think it's a nod to her taking Johnny's kind of role. Maybe she's the apple that didn't fall far from his tree. Yeah, to me, it's a connection that further tells us that she'll end up being a bit like Johnny, successful in her business and a kind-hearted person.
Oh, that's so interesting. I love that. I love that detail. That's great. So yeah, we get some heartfelt goodbyes.
And Moira is still giving meticulous instructions about how her girls should be packed and shipped carefully.
For those of you who don't know, her girls are her wigs.
Which is a callback to her frantic packing of the wigs in the pilot.
In this episode, though, in our finale, the kids have those details memorized. They know exactly what she's talking about. They've got it all down cold. Don't worry, Mom, we are on this. Whereas in the beginning, I'm sure they could care less about their mom's wigs.
Yeah. In the pilot, it's every man for him or herself. And by the end, they know one another's foibles and are helping one another along.
Yes. They've grown people. They've grown. So Moira and Johnny leave. They head out of town. As they pull out of town, we hear Johnny say, "Stop the car." He rolls down the window. He's perplexed. He's shocked. Then we get a slow Johnny smile, and the camera turns to reveal the famous Schitt's Creek billboard, now recomposed to show every member of the Rose family in the traditional Schitt's Creek, but highly inappropriate tableau. You're just going to have to Google it, folks. I can't accurately describe this without you just going to look if you don't know what I'm talking about.
And there's that little motto next to it, Schitt's Creek, where everyone fits in. And they finally did fit in.
And it prepared them to fit in somewhere else, except for David, who really does fit in and, is staying. Yay! I'm so glad he's staying.
Well, it's another happy ending for all the roses. As you can tell from our joy and our voices, we both love this episode. But now we have to debate. Is the series finale truly what we both believe is the best Schitt's Creek episode of all time? So I'm going to dramatically announce that I do not think this is the best episode.
Ooh, burn, because you disagree with Dan Levy. This was his favorite episode.
Yeah, and it's a happy ending for David especially. I mean, this is a very David focused episode, which I don't think is a problem at all. I think it's an incredible episode. I guess maybe as a viewer, I'll just say that when I, having seen the entire series, want to go back and watch something again and again and again, I will formally nominate season 4, episode 12, Singles Week, as the best episode of the series.
Alexis, I just overheard 3 women with smokers' coughs talking about Sex in the City. The singles have arrived.
Is that what you thought I was going to pick?
Interesting. That is not the one that I thought you were going to pick. But interesting.
Wait, but did you pick it too?
I did not.
Okay. Katie thought she knew which one I was going to pick, but I guess the twin ESP isn't working this week. All right, Singles Week. The reason I love this episode so much is how well it weaves together and also bounces back and forth between 3 main sets of characters, and at the same time points out parallels between characters that you wouldn't expect to align. And I also just think this is a beautifully acted, beautifully written episode. So the first relationship I want to talk about is one that you mentioned in the finale, and it's between mother and daughter, Alexis and Moira. So as we've talked about throughout this series, Alexis is overlooked almost entirely by Moira. Moira clearly doesn't know Alexis's middle name, which for the record is Claire, not Emma or Hannah or maybe Elspeth, as Moira guesses. So at this point in season 4, Moira and Alexis have both been working together to kick off the town's big Singles Week festival, which Alexis has done an incredible amount of work to bring the whole thing about. I also think it's interesting because in this first scene, I see some elements of David and Patrick, but interestingly, I would put Alexis in the Patrick mode. She's organized. She's making sure everything gets done. And Moira is like, oh yeah, I still need to go and get the keys and locks for that thing we're doing. And I feel like that's essentially the business relationship that David as Moira in this scene and Alexis as Patrick have. But speaking of Patrick and David is trying to foist an awkward errand he does not want to do himself off on Patrick, explaining that he doesn't want to drop off doggy sweaters to Ted's vet because Alexis has just told Ted that she loves him, and Ted knows that David knows this, and therefore it's going to be too embarrassing and awkward to actually run this errand himself. Patrick is hearing all of this. He compliments Alexis's vulnerability in putting herself out there like that, but he's not going to do it. He's holding David accountable to just do the deed himself. And then...
David, listen to me. What you're doing is very brave, very generous, okay? And I don't want to add more stress to your day, but I love you.
So you just said that to me for the first time, knowing that it would make my day more stressful.
That's correct.
Because you know that I've never said that to anyone else, aside from my parents twice and one time
At a Mariah Carey concert, I know. Yeah. And I don't expect you to say it back to me right now. You say it when you're ready. It just felt right to me in the moment. You're my Mariah Carey.
Yeah, the thing that I love about Patrick is he doesn't let David get away with David's being David. So David is used to having people do things for him. Patrick is not one of those people often, and he's willing to sort of give it back. And I love that part about their relationship.
Well, another interesting thing about their relationship is you think of, because he puts on such airs, of David is the confident one, and in some ways he is.
I disagree with you. I don't think that David is the confident one. I think, and I know from Dan Levy that he thinks and agrees with me, that it's Patrick who is typically the confident one, and David's insecurities often get the best of him.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying David's super insecure. That's what we're going to get to later in this episode. I'm just saying it's interesting to me how the appearance of confidence ping pongs back and forth between them. Now, you'd think that the last relationship pair, because a lot happens, would be Alexis and Ted, but we're just going to set them aside for a moment because the third coupling I want to talk about is David and Ted.
David.
Hey! It's me.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yay!
Okay.
I love this scene. I've watched this one a million times. Keep going.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I know you've liked to do favorite character scenes. This is my favorite David scene in the entire series. It's because the entire Rose family are always putting on masks and they're ratcheting up a show to help them kind of get through this situation of living in Schitt's Creek. So my favorite moments are when we actually see, especially the Roses, take that armor off and we get a real glimpse of the human being hiding inside.
I would hardly call myself an expert on this subject. And by subject, I mean genuine human emotion. So I am just going to tell you what I know. And you can do whatever you want with that, okay?
So when David and Ted start discussing Alexis and Ted's relationship, we once again see an interesting parallel as David points out to Ted that they've both been rejected repeatedly by romantic interests. He admits they have all this armor built up around them, these walls, and how it's also so important to recognize when real love and real emotion and real support have actually come along and to accept it. And of course, as David is telling Ted all of this, we see that some light bulbs are going off in his own head as he's realizing internally what he truly has in Patrick. All right, so then we do finally get to Alexis. And it's interesting how you talked about how in the finale, her ending really is about herself and how she's grown and changed as a character. I point to Singles Week as the best episode because we get a moment of revelation and the real Alexis coming out. She's had to end up managing the kickoff of Single Week alone because side plot we don't need to go into. Jocelyn's having the baby and Moira has gone with her to the hospital. So she's on her own and she begins kind of talking to the crowd, but eventually it becomes this monologue about her own journey in love and how she had this perfect thing and she threw it away because it didn't seem as interesting or cool to have someone that was just totally truly in love with you. And she only realized later how amazing that really is. So again, we're seeing parallels now between what David was talking about when you have something that's real and how important that is to not throw it away. But again, the reason why I whip out my hankies is because it's a human moment for Alexis. We see who she really is. And so of course she deserves the happy ending she gets with Ted.
What I love about this show is her growth. So Dan Levy talked about how initially he told everyone that the finale was going to be a double wedding with Patrick and David and Ted and Alexis. But then in the end, he couldn't do it because what Annie Murphy brought to that role and the quality that she gave her just deserved more in his mind. And he wanted her to stand on her own 2 feet and to create a career for herself and to have confidence in something other than her sexuality and her looks, which are basically what she walked in the door with, but that's not what she was going to walk out with.
Yeah, I will say the episode where she and Ted do not end up together. I mean, it's sad. It's another 3 hanky one, but it's one of my favorites because I think it's also more realistic. There are a lot of ambitious people in the world who can't be together because their ambitions are taking them in opposite directions. And I think that's true. And I think they're both being true to themselves. So good call, Dan Levy. All right, so that is my official nomination, season 4, episode 12, Singles Week.
So I thought that you were going to choose Open Mic, which is a pivotal point in David and Patrick's relationship and contains, in my opinion, the best scene of the series.
Oh, I agree with you. That's the best scene of the series. I agree, but it's not my favorite episode. Everybody go watch Open Mic for the scene that you'll all know we're talking about.
And it can't be wrong. Take my heart and make it strong, babe. 'Cause you're simply the best. Better than all the rest. Better than anyone I've ever met. And I'm stuck on your heart. I hang on every word you say.
So my humble but correct nomination for the IMDb best episode would be season 3, episode 13, Grad Night. And can I just say that Annie Murphy agrees with me on this, and it's her favorite episode too, because it is the best.
All right, so let's hear why.
The first thing is that in this episode, every member of the family gets a win. Alexis is graduating from high school, first step towards starting a career for herself. Johnny is super excited because for the first time, the motel is fully booked. Moira is excited because she gets to do a solo in a Jazzagals concert. David gets a pleasant surprise from his business partner, Patrick. So the cold open on this one is great. We got all 4 family members in the hotel together. We learned that Alexis is graduating from high school, which no one remembered. We know that it is David's birthday, which he reveals, which no one remembered. He's ranting about this to Patrick in their store together.
Do you have any plans for today, or?
I plan on popping a pill, crying a bit, and falling asleep early. So just a regular weeknight.
Then we come back to a great Ted and Alexis scene. She happens upon a stack of applications from actually qualified people to do the job that she does for Ted's veterinary office. And so she respectfully resigns from her position as receptionist. Then we get a really sweet scene where, again, I think this is the first time that Moira really starts to see Alexis as a person. At one point, she's just watching Alexis get dressed through the joint door in their hotel room, and they have a sweet moment. Alexis breaks down and says, if you really want to come to my graduation, you can. But of course, Moira's like, oh no, I've got this concert, I can't go now. So it kind of ends in a little bit of deflation. And then we get one of my favorite scenes. We have the dinner with David, who is completely unaware that he is on a date. Stevie arrives and Patrick is confused. David's confused that Patrick's confused because he thought they were having a little get together for his birthday. Patrick leaves to go to the bathroom and Stevie is like, oh my God, you are on a date and you don't even realize it. Patrick's gotten him a gift. She says, if there's anything even remotely sentimental in this bag, he is on a date with you right now.
Oh, I see you found my present.
Yeah, we just didn't want anything to spill on it.
So you put it on the table.
Yeah.
Open it, David.
Oh, no, you can open it later. It's really not a big deal. It's not.
This is the first gift I haven't bought myself in a very long time, so thank you.
You're gonna be so underwhelmed when you open it. I mean, trust me, it's not. See, it's nothing.
What is it?
Oh, it's just the receipt from our first sale at the store.
This is not nothing. So thank you.
It's nothing. I just love this clip. So good. So then we have Ted showing up to Alexis's graduation. And she's like, why are you here? And he's like, well, just because you're not working for me, like, you're still important to me. And we get a little bit of pre-Ted and Alexis finally making it there. Alexis is ready to leave, but then Jocelyn has an announcement that there's a special presentation. The curtains open, and it's the Jazzagals, because Moira has kept them home from the concert, and they all sing a beautiful rendition of Baby, I'm Yours, with Moira soloing proudly for her daughter. And that's, I think, why Annie Murphy loves this episode, because it's some really good mom and daughter stuff going on here. And then we get the beginning of the best relationship TV has ever offered to us as viewers. I listened to Dan Levy talk about this scene. So in the initial script, Patrick was going to kiss David in this scene. Dan Levy just didn't feel like that was something was wrong with the scene. And so he realized that David, even though he has a disaster, like I said, in the romance department, sort of has to be the one that goes there for them.
I love that it's David who has the confidence to go in for the kiss here. And Patrick being able to react to that by saying, hey, I was really nervous. Thanks for doing that for us. Like, again, that's a totally,
confident.
Yeah, that's something a secure person says.
And then we end the episode Back in the hotel room, the supermarket sheet cake on the table reads, "Happy day, Alex and Davis." Moira grumbles that they did the best they could, and then they sing a rousing rendition of "For They're All Jolly Good People."
Well, Moira has to have the song include herself at one point, of course.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's Moira and Johnny are both singing this together. And of course, Moira is attempting to harmonize. It's great.
I definitely watched that episode as part of preparing, and it's a great episode. I agree with everything you've said, except that it's not quite the best. Singles week is.
Do you want me to tell you what the other actors that I haven't mentioned yet, what their favorite episodes were?
Sure. So I'm curious what other favorites the cast had.
So, like I said, Annie Murphy agreed with me, although she did give a shout out that her favorite scene was a little bit Alexis.
Let's do it. I'm a Lamborghini. I'm a Hollywood star. I'm a little bit tipsy when I drive my car. I'm expensive sushi. I'm a cute, huge yacht. I'm a little bit single, even when I'm not.
Pretty sure Annie Murphy wrote the lyrics as well, because she just knows her character so well.
Her husband is a musician. Actually, he just came out with an album. But yes, they wrote it together. Emily Hampshire, who plays Stevie, her favorite episode is also a season finale, which is season 5, episode 14.
Life is a Cabaret. For obvious reasons, that's her character's best episode.
Over the course of that season, the way that Dan Levy explained it to her was that season 5 was essentially Stevie's season. We see Stevie go through a lot that season. At the end of it, Emily said that her favorite part is that after she finishes this Sally Bowles number, you cut to David in the audience and he said, "That's my friend."
What about Moira and Johnny? What are their favorites?
Okay, so Moira's favorites are the pilot and the finale. I think maybe she chose more out of emotional reasons than, show reasons. Eugene's favorite episode, because he is a proud papa, is one that doesn't really feature him. It's called Meet the Parents, and he's really proud of it because he thinks that it's the best episode that Dan wrote. That's the episode where Patrick has to come out to his parents. My favorite thing that he said about this is that Dan's idea for this episode was to make the concern of Patrick's parents not be that their son was gay. Instead, he wanted their concern to be that they hadn't created a safe and comfortable enough environment for their kid in which he wasn't 100% sure that they were going to be okay with it.
I think that's another very well-written, orchestrated episode.
Well, I do have a few fun facts if you would like me to share them. Oh, so of course, everybody takes props at the end of the series. And I just loved that the prop that Dan took was the framed receipt that Patrick gave to him on their first date.
Well, that makes me wonder, if we were lucky enough to be able to take one thing, what would you pick?
Okay, Moira's wardrobe is my favorite costuming I have ever seen on television ever. My favorite outfit of hers, she and Johnny are strolling down actually the creek, Schitt's Creek, and she's wearing, what else? A black and white dress. But you guys, it's such a great black and white dress.
All right, mine's pretty simple. I'm a gal that likes a hat, so I'm going to go with the big floppy Alexis hat that she wears when she discovers that Mutt and Twyla are an item.
Is that the one with the feather? Love the feather. So another fun fact is that in the presentation pilot, the role of Alexis was not played by Annie Murphy. It was played by Abby Elliott, who was on Saturday Night Live. And she is also the daughter of Chris Elliott, who plays Roland.
Now that is interesting because I cannot imagine Alexis played by anyone but Annie Murphy.
Oh, I know. Oh, without Annie Murphy, I just don't know that this show would be as beloved as it is.
But that makes me ponder, would you recast anyone that did end up on the show? Or is there anyone that you sort of feel like, maybe we could have gone a different route with that?
Well, let's face it, Ab, you and I have discussed this show a lot.
Well, you know who I hate with a fiery passion on this show.
I know, and he's such a nice guy. I hate that you're going to do this, but go ahead. Because I understand why. Go.
Oh, it's not a mystery. I'm sure more than half the people agree with me. Roland is a terrible character. I hate him. I can't stand it. I fast forward everything that has Roland in it. It makes the show 80% better.
but I still diligently watched every Roland scene.
Well, you're a completist. I'm a let's hurry up and get back to the characters I actually care about. But I don't know that I would recast it. I don't know who else it would be because I just don't like it. I just would prefer it be excised from the show.
I know. You know what would be so interesting? Maybe instead of recasting, like, what if they just hadn't had a Roland? Because all of the other townspeople are so great. Robin Duke plays Ronnie, who's my favorite. Like, wouldn't it have been better to have Johnny interact more with like everyone in the town?
I say let's have Ronnie be the mayor. I mean,
Yes.
Bob too. If you made him slightly less humble and a little, well, he's annoying too, but in a humble way. But I feel like you could just combine Roland and Bob and let's make Ronnie the mayor and let's go with that trajectory. And Jocelyn is
It has
Ronnie's
to be
wife.
Ronnie's wife because, we cannot get rid of Jocelyn.
No, I think Jocelyn stays, but let's make her Ronnie's wife.
Jocelyn's great. I'm not saying she's not a catch. I just don't think she's Ronnie's catch.
It'd be interesting. It'd be a better love match than Roland.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think instead of, it's not about the actor. Chris Elliott is great. It's just that particular character wasn't really doing much for either of us.
Agree. And then they shove Stevie with him too. And I hate skipping Stevie stuff.
You don't, because you got to watch it for the wonderful relationship that develops between her and Johnny. So you just kind of, ignore Roland lines or whatever it is, Abby, that gets you through, because you got to watch when Stevie and Johnny are together.
Okay, well, I'd like to do a little segment called Sunrise Bay Castaway. So,
is that Moira's show?
Yeah, that's her soap opera that she's headed back to in the series finale to reboot, as is everything these days. All right, but here's the premise. Which character is your favorite from Schitt's Creek? But then, is that the same person you would want to be stuck on a deserted island with? In other words, who's your favorite character? Are they also your Sunrise Bay Castaway?
No. I'm playing this out in my head and it would be a disaster.
Well, who's your favorite?
Oh, David. Oh, my favorite character is David. He's still just so ridiculous. For clear and obvious reasons, he would be a terrible, terrible castaway partner. We'd be dead within 30 minutes, I feel. I'm going to go with, I would totally take Ronnie. I mean, is there any other choice? The woman can hunt. She takes no crap from anybody. I feel like she could kill a wild animal with her bare hands for us to eat on the first night for supper. She's going to be hardcore, and I don't know that I can, sob on her shoulder, but whatever. This woman would get us through.
All right, solid choices both. Well, my favorite Schitt's Creek character of all of them is Alexis. Her gestures, I admire them. I try to work them into my own gesturing repertoire.
I noticed after you've watched Schitt's Creek that you have a little bit of Alexis going on there yourself.
Oh, in my home, we work in the voices. And then someone will be like, oh, that was Alexis just there. Or, oh, that was a David, and so on. Similar to David, she'd be fun for an afternoon at Cafe Tropical, but not on a tropical island.
Maybe you guys could, make socialite palm dresses or something.
Well, she has been in some hostage situations, etc., and survived. So maybe she's got more to offer than I'm giving her credit for. I'm going to actually go with Jocelyn. I think Jocelyn drives herself to her own delivery of her child, right?
I forgot about that.
So she can clearly pull through in a painful situation, and we could harmonize to various jazz-gal tunes as we build a hut. And I believe she's like a, teacher. So we could chat about all the books we've read. You're going to have to fill some time on this island.
Oh, yeah.
Really dissecting Moby Dick with Jocelyn as we wait for rescue.
Lovely. Lovely. Excellent choice. I applaud.
All right. Well, thus concludes Sunrise Bay Castaway.
I do have a little pop quiz question for you. How many times does Alexis say, ew, David, on the show?
Very few. I don't think she actually says ew a lot. And she says David a lot. But one thing I think is interesting is that Moira calls him David. It's very much David. So there's a lot of Davids going on, but I don't think she actually says ew, David all that much. So I'm going to say 3 times?
Wow, you got it on the head 3 times. She only says ew, David 3 times. But Annie, like you said, loved just peppering David throughout her lines. So just through seasons 1 through 5, she said David 224 times. Speaking of Moira's unusual way of speaking, she kind of let that grow as the series grew. I mean, she had it at the beginning, but it just got more and more ridiculous as time went on. And what I love is that at the end of season 1, her makeup artist gave her this old book. It's called Foyle's Filivery. It's a treasury for weird, archaic, preposterous words that were totally legit, but, just made Moira a little bit more Moira.
Have you seen the TikTok video where it's as if Moira Rose is your GPS voice?
Out of the parking lot, you will turn left. Across the road, there is a lovely shrubbery, but pay it no mind as you must focus on the road. We don't want any accidental fender benders. In 0.4 miles, exit onto Walnut Street. Oh, that makes me think of the Walnut Street Theatre, where I once starred as Dottie Otley in a rib-tickling production of Noises Off. Shall I serenade you whilst we drive?
All right, and that amazing TikTok was done by Michael Judson Berry. Well done, Michael. Well done.
She sings Fanny Boy. I love it. The Rosebud Motel, if anyone wants to drop by, is in the tiny town of Orangeville, which is a little bit northwest of Ontario. If you want to swing by, the address is 308-399 Hockley Road. Oh, and speaking of a location, Schitt's Creek was filmed in Goodwood, Ontario, up in Canada. That town has a population of 663 people, but of course, the community was very supportive of the production. The town's baseball team even changed their name temporarily to the Schitt's Creek Bears. And speaking of baseball, the show's baseball episode is based on an event from real life. Noah Reid invited Dan Levy to join him and his softball team for a game, and Dan did shockingly well.
So there you have it. We say the very best episodes of Schitt's Creek are the season 4 finale, Singles Week, or the season 3 finale, Grad Night. Do you agree rather with the IMDB voters that it's the series finale that has the number 1 spot and should remain? Let us know. You can always email us at mustseeimdb@gmail.com. And if you're looking for that Moira dress, it's worn in season 6, episode 1. Or if you're looking for that Alexis hat, it was worn in season 2, episode 1. All right, we will be back next week because Schitt's Creek got us thinking. It's about a family that's plopped into a situation that they know nothing about and have no experience with. So we decided our next show will be Quantum Leap, where Dr. Sam Beckett leaps into an unknown life every week. And of course, many of you may know that Dean Stockwell, who played the beloved Al character, recently passed away. So we thought, what better way to honor him than to take a look back at this show we both loved as kids. Next week, Quantum Leap. See you then.